on SYN 90.7. Australia has continued good form from its final test in Adelaide just last weekend as they took on New Zealand in the first of 3 one-day internationals. Australia started off the batting. Aaron Finch got out for a duck in the first over, so it wasn't a good start. But by the 20th over, New Zealand got out Warner for 24, Bailey for 17, and Marsh, which was probably one of the worst one outs you'll ever see, on 1. So Australia was 4 for 92. They were looking in danger as New Zealand has also had good form defeating Pakistan in their test matches. But Australian captain Steve Smith kept the Aussies alive in the game, scoring his 164 runs off 157 balls, which is the most at the SCG on a one-day international. By the time Smith got out, Australia was 6 for 302 and Australia finished his 50 overs on 8 for 324. So when New Zealand got to bat, they started off strong, but losing only Latham and only losing Latham and one of the best catches you ever see by Steve Smith to get out Williamson in the first 20 overs. At the 22nd over, they were 3 for 126, doing 34 runs better than Australia at that time. But losing quick wickets, including the loss of Guptill on 114, which was the big wicket, New Zealand could not cover the loss of that. Australia bowled New Zealand out in the 44th over for 256 with Marsh picking up the final wicket. Australia winning the first one-day international by 68 runs. This was Australia's first ODI win since defeating Ireland, yes, Ireland, on the 28th of September this year, after their 5-0 loss to South Africa just a few months ago, actually. Australian captain Steve Smith won best on ground with his 164 runs and that phenomenal catch. When Australia only has a day break until they play their second ODI in Canberra, and then they go off to play in Melbourne. This match was interesting, actually. It was a good match to watch. I did enjoy Smith. I enjoyed Hazelwood's bowling. Hazelwood got his 3 wickets for 49. But over on the other side, New Zealand did do well as well, with Guptill doing his 114 of 102 balls. Pretty much the only big name, apart from Munro, who scored a 49, who ended up getting bowled out by Cummings. The most interesting one was Maxwell, who wasn't selected in the team, was selected as the 12th man after a lot of talk this week, a lot of yelling, name calling, especially to wicketkeeper Wade, and they had a bit of a feud. And it would have been a slap in the face when Wade was batting and Maxwell had to serve him drinks. But Maxwell did something. He actually was the catch to get out Guptill, bowled by Sampa. So that was good from Australia. So Australia has now won 2 matches after it was a bad start to the cricket, especially the Australian season, when they played South Africa and got smashed in the first 2 tests. Did South Africa really try in the 3rd test? Who knows? But they got over the line. They defeated New Zealand, who defeated Pakistan in the last test series. So yeah, tomorrow they go off and play. Tomorrow they go off to Canberra, which is very, like I said, I've said it a few times already. It's a very weird year in cricket. They're going all over the place, and usually we have the 5. We have the 5 one-dayers. So we have the 5 tests. You know, it goes Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and then we have the one-dayers. Then we have a few 2020s. This year is not like that. This year we had the 3 tests, we have 3 one-dayers, then we have a few more tests, then we go to then we play one-days in New Zealand, and then we come back to play 2020s. And the final 2020 will take place against Sri Lanka in Geelong. And then the next day we have a test over in India, so don't know how that's going to work. But yeah, so New Zealand got over Pakistan. So, which also will give Australia hope heading into the test series against Pakistan, who's one of the best test teams in the world. The second match should be much better. Pretty much, I think both teams will go in with the same lineup. I don't see much change. And maybe the only one, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree with me, that Mitchell Marsh might be out. He made a few mistakes. He did a terrible run out, and he pretty much gave New Zealand a 4 by tapping the ball towards the boundary. But it's a momentum thing. When it's not your day, it's not your day, and you can be the best at whatever you do, but when it's not your day, everything can go wrong. But all around, again, it was a great performance by Australia, getting New Zealand all out. But New Zealand's never won a one-day international at the SCG, so, years and years of bad luck still works. And I think this is our first one day against New Zealand since the World Cup final. So another interesting fact here. We're going to go to a song, and then we're going to talk about some AFL, because I've got some more AFL news here. We're going to listen to The Crowded House first, Don't Dream It's Over, here on the Sports Desk on CN90.7. That was Big Jet playing here on the Sports Desk on CN90.7. Let's get into some AFL now. And yes, it was breaking news, and it pretty quickly wasn't breaking news. But Port Adelaide forward Jarman Impey is in hot water after crashing into 4 cars and fleeing the scene. One of the cars was teammate Angus Monfils after he attended his pool party. Impey, who is 21, was driving without duty of care, failing to exchange practicals and failing to report the collision. He did Port Adelaide posted a video later that day of Impey apologising, and it's just another one of those things of football players doing stupid things. Nothing really covered. He might get a licence suspension, a bit of a fine. He is due to face court, but Impey doesn't seem like one of those players who will get into a lot of trouble throughout his career. Maybe it was just a stupid mistake from a 21-year-old. It's been an okay off-season, to say the least. Not many, a few people got in trouble. We got Impey, who did the crashing the 4 cars. Melbourne had a player who was drunk driving, and Freo has both Michael Johnson and Shane Yowen on assault charges. So good to be a football player this off season. In other news, David Swallow from the Gold Coast Suns has also put rumors to rest about his contract, especially after after the end of last season. It was all reports that he would go to North Melbourne to play with his brother, because he was annoyed with the CEO of the Gold Coast Suns and the medical team. But he signed a 2-year deal in 2019, which is pretty much the only big name on the Gold Coast list who's out of contract. So after losing Bernal and Dixon at the end of the 2015 season, losing O'Meara and Prestia, it was a good sign for the Gold Coast Suns. So one of the names off the big table of people who are out of contract. But the way AFL works, we know that either Fife, Martin, Rockcliffe, I think you've got Luke Bruce, we'll have Cruiser, Pritis, Zaharakis, and you have both the Kennedys and Daniel Menzel, all players who are out of contract, and it's pretty obvious that one of them will probably head to another club. There's been talk on around from Carlton saying that they want Fife, but they even think Fife's going to stay. And I honestly believe that Freo would give Fife everything. I'm pretty sure Fife would probably get the captaincy because they want him to stay. Talking about captaincy as well, Gary Ablett has, after we were talking about this last week, Gary Ablett has stepped down as captain of the Gold Coast Suns, which is likely to go to Tom Lynch, which is the fourth captain to be stepped down. Well, third, actually. Ablett stepped down from Gold Coast, which should be success by Tom Lynch. Andrew Swallow stepped down from North Melbourne, should be taken over by Jack Zeeble. Nick Revolt stepped down from St Kilda, should be taken over by either Jack Stephen or Jared Gary. Then you're saying Brendan Goddard probably will not continue as Essendon captain next year, will be either taken over again by Watson or Dyson Heppel. So that's already 4. Then you got the likelihood of Tom Rockcliffe will not captain Brisbane next year, and that should be taken over by either Dane Beams or Dane Zorko. And maybe Freo might chuck Fife the captaincy just to help him stay. So there should be a lot of captaincy moves next year, and I've been saying it for a while, and I think Gold Coast are in a good place. The fact that Ablett's not captain will be a good weight off his shoulders. Hopefully he plays for longer than he said he might retire at the end of next year. And by retire, let's hope he retires. And I don't think the Suns will trade him to Geelong. So let's hope that all works out. And usually, it's off season. All the clubs are back. Bulldogs captain Robert Murphy has started training. So everything's looking good for both sides. We're going to go to another song, and we're going to talk about the soccer now here on Sin 90.7. This is Peter Murray, Better Days. So this is John Butler Trio, Zebra, the year 2000. Is Sin 90.7, and I apologise. That was actually the John Butler trio, Deborah, my mistake. On to 90.7, let's kick off now with the A-League. And on Wednesday night, it was the FFA Cup final between Melbourne City and Sydney FC. And a goal from Tim Cahill helped Melbourne City to get their first piece of silverware in the A-League. So, good for them. Congratulations. Yeah. Pretty much. I've always said, and I still agree, that the FFA Cup will not be a big thing until a smaller club actually wins. A Blacktown, a Canberra Olympia, a Green Gully. It was like when the Reds... So, not when the Reds, it was when... Sorry, can I find it? But a team defeated Adelaide United. And speaking of Adelaide United, they have finally knocked up their first win of the 2016-17 A-League season by defeating the Wellington Phoenix 2-0 at home. Also, yesterday we had Sydney FC defeat Newcastle 2-0. But it's not all bad for Adelaide. Well, it is all bad for Adelaide, actually, because over in the EPL, fellow premiers, champions, whatever you call them, aren't doing too well. Leicester City are currently 15th out of 20th, with only 3 wins, 4 draws and 7 losses, and they went down only yesterday 2-1 against Sunderland, who are last on the EPL table. So second last on the EPL table. So not looking good for premiers. So if anyone, let's maybe not back the Bulldogs or the Cronulla Sharks or the Chicago Cubs. And the Cleveland Cavaliers have actually also lost their last 3 games, and I'll get a bit more to that later. Also, it was a good show of respect by all the A-League teams, starting off with the FFA Cup final, paying their respect to the 76 people who lost their lives. So the 77 people who lost their lives in the plane crash that killed 19 staff and players of the Chapecoense Brazilian team, who were scheduled to play their first leg of the 2016 Copa Sudamericana against Atlético Nacional. So that was terrible news, but great show of respect by everyone involved. Also for the Chapecoense team, soccer legend Ronaldinho has also said he will join the club as a loan for free, as well as the club that were meant to verse, Atlético Nacional, has said they would like to award the 2016 Copa Sudamericano to them, which all in all, means nothing. This is one of the situations where life is more important than the football, but it was a good show of respect from everyone from Australia and everyone involved. So get to the ladder now of the 2016-17 A-League season, and Sydney FC are first, still haven't lost a game, 7 wins, 2 draws, followed by Melbourne City, so it's going to be a massive, massive game next week. Hopefully it's a massive turnout. I'm pretty sure it is in Sydney. I'll get that up. Yeah, it will be a Friday night as well, Friday night in Sydney. Hopefully it'll be a sold-out match because it's pretty much a grand final. Well, it was a final, and they've got Sydney's first loss of this year in the FFA Cup. So hopefully it'll be a massive game, hopefully a good game. I think got third Melbourne Victory, who are on 14 points, 3 points behind City, but they do have a game behind, as well as Wellington Phoenix. Then followed by the Brisbane Roar, the Perth Glory, and then the Western Sydney Wanderers rounding out the top 6 after their 4-1 win over the Central Coast Mariners. Below that, you got the Central Coast Mariners. Adelaide United jumped up from last to 8th. That shows how close this season is. Then you got the Newcastle Jets on 6 points, and then last you got the Wellington Phoenix as well, who also have a game in hand. So maybe not all doom and gloom for them. Overall, I think this will pretty much be Sydney FC seasons. There's the lose. Be like the Greater Western Sydney Giants next year in the AFL. So hopefully everything works out there. Now we're going to go to a song, and this is going to be the Hunter and Collectors, When the River Runs Dry. For real this time, I'm not kidding. Here on Sin 90.7. That was When the River Runs Dry here on the Spot Desk on Sin 90.7. And it's currently 9:49 here and 17 degrees at top of 24 in beautiful Melbourne today. I'm going to start off this. We're going to go to the American sports, plus actually going to talk about some NBL. But I'm going to talk about my pet hate, and I've been my pet hate for a while. With sport items, especially jerseys, being a fashion accessory, especially the American ones. I've always voiced my opinion how I don't like the Curry, LeBron James. Once they become big names, that's what everyone wears. And today I saw something which is, I don't know, I was on the fence. I saw this guy today at the station before I got here. He was wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey with a Dallas Cowboys cap. And if any of you aren't sure, with the NFL at the moment, Dallas Cowboys are the top team, only losing one game so far. Have won their last 11. So they lost their first game, has won every game since. So I don't know if the guy is a bandwagon supporter or an actual pure Dallas Cowboys supporter. With everyone else, you'll probably see the LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers jersey. Only a few years ago, he was wearing the Miami Heat LeBron James jersey, and you're like, oh wow, you changed for some unknown reason. Yeah, so that's probably my biggest pet hate when it comes to American sports. But onto the NFL now. And Dallas Cowboys, as said before, topped off and they defeated Minnesota on Friday. Another top team, the New England Patriots, smashed the LA Rams 26-10 just before. Another top team, the Oakland Raiders, are losing to Buffalo 17-9 at the start of the third. And the Cincinnati Chiefs, where are the Chiefs here? The Chiefs defeated Atlanta Falcons by a point. Crossed over now to the National Basketball Association, the NBA. Last week I complained, which people who know me should be surprised, I don't really complain that often. With the Cleveland and the Golden State Warriors being 1 and 2, and who really wants to see those two teams go at it again in the championship playoffs for the third time? Cleveland has now lost, since I said that, have lost their last 3 to go to 13-5, and the State lost 1, going to 7-3. San Antonio Spurs and Los Angeles Clippers as well have climbed up the ladder, or the table, and are looking good. There's still a lot more games to go. NBA goes for 82 weeks. Well, not 82 weeks, that's a lot of time. 82 games. But by the looks of Golden State Warriors will finish first with their all-star lineup, which is something else I disagree with. I don't think there should ever be an all-star team in any sport, unless it's homegrown. The best thing about the Hawthorn team, apart from names like Brian Lake, Frawley, Gibson, Bergeron and that's pretty much all Hawthorn-based players. They came to Hawthorn, they started off at Hawthorn, and we have Lake and Frawley who are both very out of form, same with David Hale. But getting a player who Kevin Durant, who won the MVP only a few years ago, to make a super team should not be allowed, and that's something the NBA should have taken upon themselves to actually have a look at. Before we get to some NBA results, we'll go to NBL now, the Australian Basketball League, which really should be bigger than it actually is. I'm a big fan of all Australian sports, and I think, as well as I think field hockey in Australia is very, very underappreciated and underrated, considering we are the best team by far in the world. Does not get much airtime, you don't see it on TV, there's really no sponsors of the National Hockey League. But the NBL, another big one who, they need a big name player. They should just pay LeBron James $1 million to play one game for a team. Just yesterday, Melbourne United, so our good old Melbourne team, who finished first last year but did not win the championship, currently last, defeated the New Zealand Breakers, which is a massive, massive win, 98-74. You have the Adelaide 36ers defeat the Perth Wildcats 92-86. The Cairns Taipans defeated the Brisbane Bullets 89-84. And then you had the Illawarra Hawks defeat the New Zealand Breakers 95-91. Sydney Kings are currently on top of the NBL ladder. Usually it's a Perth, New Zealand thing, but the ladder at the moment shows Perth and New Zealand are the bottom 2 teams, with Melbourne United jumping up. And so looking quite good for the Sydney Kings as well as Sydney FC. And then, you got probably a New South Wales team win the premiership in the NRL, as well as you probably have the Greater Western Sydney Giants should win the AFL. So if you're from New South Wales, sport's looking quite good for you. So yesterday, we got 4 games on today. You have the Orlando Magic take on the Detroit Pistons at 10 a.m. The New Orleans Pelicans take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Sacramento Kings take on the New York Knicks. and the Indiana Pacers take on the LA Clippers. Yesterday we saw Golden State Warriors destroy the Phoenix Suns, and we saw Toronto destroy Atlanta, as well as the Boston Celtics beat Philadelphia 76ers by a point. So everything's looking pretty up in sport at the moment. And that's all we have time for today, though. Next week will be the last show of the season. And I am not 100% sure, but I think I think I'll be going back solo again next week, as I'm pretty sure Alex will be off in Canberra playing a game of Quidditch. And I wish he was on today, because I wanted to ask him about Quidditch and how it's an actual sport. But that's all good. This has been the Sport Test on Sin 90.7, and this is Liam McGrady. Everyone enjoy your day.